a wealthy entrepreneur found murdered in his waterfront home.
He was laying face down with his hands kind of tucked up under his pillows.
The entire house had been ransacked.
It didn't appear there was any struggle. It didn't look like he saw it coming.
As leads go cold, investigators turn to the victim's loved ones for answers.
Everybody loved Dad. Nobody hated Dad. There were so many feelings. I didn't even believe it.
But the investigation reveals a family man who lived a bachelor's lifestyle.
He enjoyed his life, he enjoyed partying.
It looked as if he had engaged with somebody to essentially set up a date.
Those messages were very clearly talking about money.
And when detectives zero in on a suspect, it leads to a desperate manhunt that will take them over 3,000 miles away.
She liked shiny things. She liked driving around in a Mercedes.
I think it was premeditated, 100%.
I just kept telling her your best bet is to turn yourself in, because if you're running from something, it's just going to make it so much worse.
March 3rd, 2021, Clackamas County, Oregon. At 11:28 a.m., a 911 call is made from an upscale home on the Willamette River.
How can I help you?
I came over to my boss's house and I found him and he's dead.
Okay. Is he cold to the touch or stiff?
I didn't touch him, but he's kind of full of blood.
The caller, Tony Morrell, says he became concerned for 62-year-old Jimmy Pearson after not hearing from him for several days.
Mr. Merrill was not only his friend, but he also worked for him. He found Mr. Pearson naked, and he had blood all pooling all around his head. As soon as he saw the blood, he got scared, exited the residence, and then called 911.
This call originally was dispatched to Deputy Fredrickson. He's one of our patrol deputies. He responded to the scene. It was a very nice home in a very nice neighborhood. The residence's driveways are gated, so you have to have a code to get into the driveway of the residence. It's a very nice home. It's very large.
Deputy Fredrickson enters the master bedroom, where he finds an unresponsive male victim lying on the bed.
He was laying face down with his hands kind of up over his head, tucked up under his pillows. Deputy Fredrickson could see the blood around his head area on the bed.
A swift search of the bedroom confirms the victim is the owner of the house, Jimmy Pearson.
Deputy Fredrickson did find a wallet on the nightstand, which had an ID card in it, and the ID card appeared to match the deceased person on the bed. Deputy Fredrickson moved one of the pillows to see if there was any firearm. Because the amount of blood, I think he was guessing that it may have been a gunshot wound.
He couldn't determine where the blood was coming from, and he didn't know if it was self-inflicted.
After a preliminary search of the scene, no weapon is located. However, there are signs of what looks like a break-in.
The entire house had been ransacked, drawers opened, things obviously missing, like someone had gone through just about every room and looked through everything.
Homicide detectives quickly arrive, accompanied by the medical examiner.
One of the things we noticed when we walked into his bedroom is that there was a really pungent smell of decomposition, so we knew he had been dead for several days.
As they were examining the body, they did find what appeared to be a bullet wound to the back of the deceased's head.
Until the medical examiner could conduct their pathology exam, we weren't going to be able to 100% say that he died of a homicide. But we were treating it as a homicide. People, when they commit suicide, don't typically shoot themselves in the back of the head.
There were no weapons. There were a lot of unknowns. So trying to find out when something occurred is one of our first steps. reaching out to family, friends, anybody that can give us an indication of where they've been, what they've been doing, and who they've been spending time with.
Jimmy Pearson was born August 19, 1957, in Dearborn, Michigan. He was one of 4 siblings, and their home life was anything but perfect.
His dad was Al Pearson. He played professional hockey for the Detroit Red Wings. However, he was an alcoholic, so that put a damper on his mom and his relationship. So his mother ended up divorcing his dad when he was very young.
Faced with raising the children on her own, Jimmy's mother moved them to Oregon in search of a fresh start.
She had 4 kids, so she spent a lot of hours at work, and they pretty much had to fend for themselves.
He saw his mom working all the time, so he thought he could help out. He, at a young age, would be out mowing lawns, doing whatever he could to provide, to bring in money.
By his early 20s, Jimmy was a hard-working, ambitious young man ready to start a family of his own.
I met Jimmy in the summer that I turned 18, and I met him at the houseboat. My sister was dating somebody who was a good friend of Jimmy's. After we started dating, he had opened up Hawkeye Trading Post, buy, sell, trade. That was his first little foot in the door to, being in the pawn shop business.
Jimmy and Sandra married in 1987 and had 2 children together. But his dedication to work put a strain on the relationship.
Jimmy was a good father when he was around because he worked a lot. Like, he would leave in the morning and sometimes not come back until 1 or 2 in the morning. There's not one thing that led to the divorce. It was a lot of different things. It was a mutual agreement that it was better for us to split. However, when we got divorced, we still were friends.
Jimmy lived with his family for a few years until one of his business ventures got him into trouble with the law in 1992.
The DEA came out to our door like at 6 in the morning. They toted Jimmy out of there within the first half hour. They had a warrant for his arrest for manufacturing and growing marijuana.
Jimmy was convicted on drug charges and spent 3 years in prison. When he got out, Jimmy was anxious to reunite with his children and rebuild his pawn business.
He got a deal at a place out in Gladstone, a property. We named it A1 Hawk.
A1 Hawk is a state licensed pawn shop, and we buy and sell goods and also do 90-day collateral loans. So from open to close, we're buying inventory off of customers or we're selling inventory to customers.
As soon as his daughters could see over the counter, they came to work with him.
We would ask him for money, and he would say, well, how many hours have you worked? When I first started, I was very shy and I was timid, and I was scared to go out on the sales floor. I'd ask my dad a question in fear, like, Dad, what do I say? He's like, just go in there and tell everybody that there's a new sheriff in town, and act like you own the joint.
The business was a success, and Jimmy expanded to 3 locations. By 2021, Jimmy used the considerable wealth he'd earned to spoil his growing family as his daughters had started families of their own.
He didn't flaunt wealth. He didn't come off pretentious. He definitely used his money for fun. He had 2 houses. One was a floating home, one was just on the bank there. And I remember regularly working on that house and just being awestruck, like, how do you attain these properties?
He seemed like he was happy. Jimmy was a selfless person. He wanted it to be known that A1 Hawk wasn't like other pawn shops and to break the stigma behind most standard corporate pawn shops.
But this doting grandfather and entrepreneur has been found dead inside his sprawling riverfront mansion, and investigators are trying to determine why.
There was no firearm located anywhere. There was no shell casing located anywhere. So that led us to believe that, well, one, he couldn't have killed himself.
They did find 2 drink cups in the bedroom that, most people don't drink out of 2 different glasses of the same type of drink. So it would indicate that there was a second person there. One of the detectives went into the bathroom and found some prescriptions with the name Talia McDaniel.
He had his underwear and his socks on the floor, and I think he had his shirt draped over at the edge of the bed, so it appeared as though he had disrobed and gotten into bed.
It was very likely that the person that killed him was someone that was familiar to him. And it didn't appear there was any struggle. It didn't look like Mr. Pearson saw it coming.
Coming up, an old flame becomes a person of interest.
There was this falling out where money and possessions were taken.
And detectives access a crucial piece of evidence.
As we were looking through the ring footage on Mr. Pearson's phone, we found a female getting out of the vehicle and coming to the front door.
After Oregon detectives search 63-year-old Jimmy Pearson's ransacked bedroom, they suspect he was likely robbed and murdered in his own home.
We were aware that he had owned A1 Hawk pawn locations, and so the belief that because he was the owner of these locations that he would potentially have jewelry or cash on hand.
But it surely looked like somebody had gone through a lot of Mr. Pearson's possessions. When we noticed that he had the ring camera outside the front, we knew that it was likely going to capture whoever killed him. If they came in through the front door, we'd be able to see who did it and at what time the homicide occurred. We needed to gain access to Mr. Pearson's cell phone to gain access to the cameras. The issue was that the phone had a pass lock, so we couldn't get into the phone. So that was a little bit of a challenge.
During the search, 3 of Jimmy's associates have gathered in the driveway.
Mr. Merrill told us that after calling 911, he then called Mr. Pearson's attorney, his paralegal. They both came to the scene.
Detectives step outside to speak with them, starting with Tony.
He indicated that he had known Mr. Pearson for well over 20 years.
Mr. Merrill told investigators that the last time he had saw Mr. Pearson was they had gone to a casino.
They had spent some time up there gambling, eating, and in the early morning hours on February 27th, Mr. Merrill left Mr. Pearson at the casino. He said that was the last time that he had communicated with Mr. Pearson.
On March 3rd, he found it odd that he still had not heard from Mr. Pearson, and actually nobody had heard from him in a couple days. So Mr. Merrill decided he wanted to go inside and check to see if Mr. Pearson was okay.
He said he had access to the garage code. He noticed that the dog food dish was empty, or water bowl was empty. Took care of the dog, fed, watered, took it out potty, and then he went to Mr. Pearson's room.
After Tony finishes detailing the events leading up to finding his deceased friend, detectives turn to Jimmy's attorney.
I was asking him a myriad of questions about Mr. Pearson's past and about who would want to harm him. Although he didn't try to throw shade, he indicated that there was a bit of a falling out between Mr. Pearson and his daughters over Mr. Pearson's personal life.
And he had known Mr. Pearson for a long time. They had become friends. He was now his wills and estates lawyer and had written a will for him recently in which he had essentially disinherited his 2 daughters.
The attorney says Jimmy decided to leave his fortune to himself and another friend rather than family.
He handed me his amended will that had just happened within a couple months prior to that, which to me was a little odd. Although it was suspicious how we were introduced, their cooperation led us to believe that his attorney didn't have anything to do with it. Anything that we needed or requested, they were quick to help us with. We asked her, because she knew a lot of Mr. Pearson's affairs, do you know what Mr. Pearson's passcode is? And at first she stated no, but they said, I might be able to locate it. She said one of the people that had access to Mr. Pearson's house was Mr. Pearson's housekeeper and would come every Monday. Since it was Wednesday at the time, we knew that Monday had just happened.
Investigators place a call to the housekeeper, hoping she might have seen something.
She had been there between the hours of 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. She said she entered the residence through the front door. She has a key Mr. Pearson provided her. She heard loud music coming from the direction of Mr. Pearson's room. She went to go check on Mr. Pearson, opened the door and saw his feet. Thought, oh, he's asleep. I don't want to bother him. So she's the one that actually shut the door, and she proceeded to clean the residence. I asked her, well, while you were there, did anything look odd or out of place or unusual? And the first thing she told me was, hey, you know what? When I was folding clothes, I noticed that there was some women's clothing that I was folding.
Mr. Pearson's housekeeper says it used to be a common occurrence, back when he was dating a woman named Tylea McDaniel.
He had a prior relationship with her, and when Tylea was living with Mr. Pearson, it was very common to see her clothing amongst Mr. Pearson's in the dryer. But that had been about a year prior.
To detectives, the name sounds familiar.
They had found prescription bottles that had belonged to a woman named Tylea McDaniel.
Detectives now aim to track down Ms. McDaniel to determine if she had a motive to harm Jimmy Pearson.
Obviously, that was a name that popped into our periphery as potentially being involved in this.
So when we looked up Mr. Pearson's name, we did find a report where he had claims that he'd been the victim of a burglary. He had listed Tylea McDaniel as stealing from him, and we started to believe that that may be who we needed to find.
The day after Jimmy Pearson was found dead, investigators interview his daughters, Sarah and Tanya Pearson.
They said they believed that he was murdered. And that was... can't even say the feeling. There were so many feelings. I didn't even believe it.
I asked them questions about, hey, tell me about your dad, tell me about your dad's dealings, who he associated with.
Everybody loved Dad. Nobody hated Dad.
Mr. Pearson's daughter's interview was enlightening. They explained why the fallout with their father, and a lot of it had to do with the people he was keeping company with. They didn't like the females that he was around. They described as their feelings were they were potentially escorts.
The only person that came to my mind was Tylea. We started dating a young woman, and I believe she was around 20 years old. We would ask, how did you guys meet? She said it was like in the movie. We were at a grocery store, carts hit, and then he got my number. She didn't have a job, didn't have a car, didn't have a driver's license. She had nothing. Whether she was nice, great, she's nice. But you're gonna invite this person into your home? Into your business?
Their concern was that she was a bad influence on Mr. Pearson, and that kind of wasn't the type of grandfather that they wanted their children to be around.
As a result, Sarah quit working at the pawn shop, and her suspicions about Tylea grew.
I found out about a month later that my dad thought she took off with a whole bunch of cash and valuables at his house.
There was a report of a theft from this house about a year ago. That case was reported, but no charges were ever filed.
After the robbery, Jimmy broke off the relationship, but the rift between him and his daughters continued to grow.
It had to do with Jimmy feeling like they were trying to take over his life and tell him what to do. He enjoyed his life, he enjoyed partying, and wasn't going to listen to his daughters trying to convince him otherwise.
Despite their problems, Sarah and Tanya tell detectives they were unaware their father had written them out of his will.
They said that we would be getting a call from his lawyer and they would be reading his testimony. When it rains, it pours. And there were so many questions, but my only question was, what happened to my dad?
That day, the medical examiner conducts an autopsy that will answer their question.
It was determined that Mr. Pearson was shot once in the back of the head.
A bullet was removed, and it was identified as a .38 Special slug.
Now that Jimmy's cause of death is confirmed, investigators are eager to track down the person who pulled the trigger.
This paralegal, she contacted us, provided us the passcode, and when we entered it, thankfully it unlocked his phone. We were able to gain access to Mr. Pearson's text messages and also the Ring camera app.
But none of the messages are from Tylea.
The last read message was from Paris Royal Natasha.
It looked as if he had engaged with somebody to essentially set up a date for someone to come to his house. There was an exchange of messages of, are you here? Or, how far out are you, essentially?
Previous messages spell out the nature of the relationship.
Those messages were very clearly talking about money and them getting together and exchanging money for the time they spent together, which led us to believe that he was paying for her services as an escort. As we were looking through the Ring footage, we found a vehicle arriving at his house and a female getting out of the vehicle and coming to the front door.
Investigators are uncertain who the woman arriving is, but one thing is clear: she is not Tylea McDaniel.
They're two different sized people. They look very different, and it was clear that that was not who we were looking at. Miss McDaniel was no longer really on our radar.
Paris Royal Nistasha, that's not a typical name that we tend to hear. So we had a feeling that that was likely not a real name. So one of the things that we did was we did a search, a law enforcement search of the phone number itself.
We were able to associate that phone number with a Nistasha Rose Tate.
We utilized her driver's license photo, which we were able to use to compare to the person we saw in the Ring camera video.
She was wearing like a dark colored sweatshirt and jeans and was carrying a bag with her. When she went to the door, Mr. Pearson greeted her and then they went inside.
Two hours later, around 2:42 a.m., the footage shows Nistasha leaving the home.
She comes back out and has the same red duffel bag in her hand, and it appears to be extremely full and heavy. In her right hand, it looks like she has maybe some reusable shopping bags or something else, not items that she had originally shown up with, but things that came from inside the home.
She makes several trips of carrying bags and boxes to her vehicle, put things in the vehicle.
It appeared she was wearing gloves, which was odd.
It was very clear that by the condition in which she found the house, how it looked like it had been ransacked, that Nistasha was looking for any valuable she could to sell.
This appears suspicious given the larger context of finding Mr. Pearson deceased. At that point, we're attempting to develop as much information about her as possible. Who is she? Are there any law enforcement contacts in the area with her?
A search of police records results in a hit on Nistasha's name.
She had been involved in a traffic stop 12 minutes after leaving Mr. Pearson's home.
The officer noted that there was a purse that was open on the front passenger seat of Nistasha's car, and that there was a revolver handgun that was sitting in plain view.
She explained she was in possession of the gun because she took it from a friend, and that's not legal to transfer a firearm. The firearm was seized and placed into evidence by Milwaukee police.
During the traffic stop, there was no reason to detain her, but to investigators, the implications are clear.
A bullet was found in Mr. Pearson's head. It was removed, and it was identified as a .38 Special Slug. And knowing that Officer Sanchez had seized a .38 caliber revolver from Nistasha the prior night, that immediately led me to believe that that was likely a murder weapon.
Now, the suspect has about a 2-day lead on law enforcement, so they need to make up 2 days very quickly, because the longer this goes on, the more difficult it is going to be able to find her.
Less than 48 hours into their investigation, homicide detectives have landed on a suspect in the murder of Jimmy Pearson, an apparent escort named Nistasha Tater. They send the evidence gathered so far for forensic testing.
We submitted the jacketed bullet that was recovered from Mr. Pearson's head. We submitted the firearm.
Police also obtain an arrest warrant for Nistasha, but they quickly realize she knows how to move under the radar.
The phone numbers that we had previously for her, we knew were no longer good. She was no longer using. She worked as an exotic dancer at a couple different nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs. So we had detectives go to those different locations to see if we could find her vehicle. Unfortunately, her vehicle was not found at any of those places. So that became the primary focus of this investigation, is where is she at?
Social media being such a large part of pretty much everybody's lives these days, they were able to find not only her escort page, but her private social media page.
Nistasha's personal account indicates family members are also looking for her.
One of the messages was left by her grandmother that said something similar to, "What the heck, we were all very worried about you."
When investigators reach out to the grandmother, she puts them in touch with Nistasha's mother.
They learn that Miss Tate's mother is Teresa Tate, and that she would be the person who would know where Nistasha Tater is if anybody knew.
When investigators went and spoke to Teresa Tate, she painted a pretty sad story of, what Nistasha's life had been. Had a pretty rough upbringing, couldn't read, couldn't write, had been introduced to prostitution at a fairly young age by a friend who she had kind of grown up with, who was a few years older.
She was very honest and upfront about, my daughter is associated with bad people. She's had multiple pimps. She has prostituted herself throughout the country.
She'd been trying to help her really get out of this world for a long period of time. But because Nistasha did not want that help, their communication had broken down.
Teresa said that Nistasha would only tell her very little about where she was. She would never tell her anything specific.
She said she's hidden in the past and laid low, but not really to this extent. Nistasha had spent time in Los Angeles, Minnesota, New York, Florida, Nevada. So really, she could have been anywhere.
When I left my business card and my phone number, and I told her, hey, if her daughter reached out to her, to let me know so that we can try to follow up. And she told us she would.
To aid in their search, detectives enlist the U.S. Marshals Service. They also file subpoenas for Nistasha's social media accounts.
When those records were received, they were also very enlightening.
She stated that she was looking for a gun from somebody. Another one was like almost an invitation to another person, like, hey, can you come join me to do this lick?
In the day before and even the day of Mr. Pearson's death and the time that she was at his house, she was reaching out to multiple people on Facebook talking about a big lick, kind of a big score.
And looking at Nistasha's social media, she liked shiny things. She liked driving around a Mercedes. She liked to have possessions. It led us to believe that primary motivator for what Nistasha did, it was greed, it was money.
The picture is becoming much more crystal clear that this was a planned event, that this wasn't something that she went there and it was a crime of passion. She intended to do this, and that she was setting herself up to do this to Mr. Pearson.
Coming up, detectives get a tip on Nistasha's location.
Did she say where she was headed?
North Carolina.
And Nistasha's mother makes a confession.
I just kept telling her your best bet is to get your taken care of and turn yourself in.
The hunt for Nistasha Tate continues for a month with no sign of Jimmy Pearson's suspected killer. But on April 7th, 2021, investigators finally get a lead.
They put out this notice to all law enforcement they were looking for this Mercedes. And turns out that Mercedes ends up getting towed in Portland.
They made a call to the impound and said, do not release this vehicle to anybody. We're going to come down and get it.
That's when we were told that someone else had arrived and was trying to get the vehicle released to them. Turns out it was a friend of Nistasha Tate's, and the tow company asked her to stick around, and detectives wanted to talk to her.
It turned out to be a woman named Monique.
Monique claims she bought the car from Nistasha a month prior.
She said she was finna leave town and she sold my car, and I said, I'll take it.
I stated, okay, do you know where Nistasha is now? And she stated that she didn't know where she was, but she and her boyfriend had driven Nistasha to a bus stop on March 11th.
Did she say where she was headed?
North Carolina.
But according to Monique, Nistasha had an unexpected change of plans.
She did call me a couple days after she left, and she was in Florida. She was being really weird, and I kept saying, what's wrong? Like, what did you do? She's like, I can't tell you. I just gotta get away. I just gotta get away.
Detectives asked if there was any way that we could get a hold of her to try to track her down. Monique said that there really wasn't any clear way to get a hold of her because her number was changing and she was communicating on a Wi-Fi only phone. Learning that Nistasha Tate was now potentially in Florida definitely added some complexity to the investigation. We couldn't be further away in Oregon from Florida.
2 days later, as detectives work with Florida police to locate Nistasha, her mother calls to request a meeting.
She didn't want us to meet at her residence. She said she didn't want her neighbors to see her talking to the police, so we met her in some parking lot at a shopping center. She informed us that she had been communicating periodically with her daughter, Nistasha, even though she told us she hadn't been hearing from her.
Teresa explains that she's been trying to convince her daughter to turn herself in.
I just kept telling her your best bet is to get your taken care of and turn yourself in, whatever it is. Because if you're running from something, it's just going to make it so much worse.
Hoping to pin down a location, detectives ask Teresa to make contact with Nistasha.
I'd be fine with that, because that's the only way we're going to get her, and she needs to be God at this point. As much as it just feels so against the grain, I know it's the right thing to do for her anyway.
We left, and then a short time after we parted the company, she contacts Deputy Sanders, who's on the U.S. Marshals Task Force, and told her, hey, FYI, she contacted me on the phone. So then we knew that that was a good number that we could use to try to track her.
Once they got that phone number, and they do what's called a trap and trace, and determined that she was in a bus stop not that far from the Tampa Bay Police Department. So then the Tampa Bay police officer went down there and went to the bus stop, and she stands out a little bit. She's got an unusual look to her and some tattoo on her face that's somewhat recognizable.
Nistasha is carrying the same sweatshirt detectives saw her sporting in the footage from Jimmy's doorbell camera.
It was a very distinct hoodie with some words on it, bougie or something along that line. The detectives got to keep an open mind to the possibility of a fight or a struggle.
They covertly took a picture of her in the area and sent it to detectives.
They sent to me, hey, is this her? And I was able to positively identify, yeah, that was her. At that point, I told them, yeah, that's her.
Once they confirmed that that was her, she was, cooperative, they then took her into custody.
I was told she's in custody, and travel arrangements were made for myself and my partner, Detective Michael Zacher, to fly out to Tampa, Florida immediately.
We went to an interview room, and Nistasha was brought to us.
I would like a court-appointed lawyer.
I just want you to be aware that, like, once we leave, that's basically your opportunity to tell us what happened, until trial happens.
Yeah, I'd still like an attorney.
Nistasha is charged with first-degree robbery and second-degree murder. While she's being extradited back to Oregon, Jimmy's family learns of the arrest.
We were so excited. Like, it was like we won the lottery.
They did give us the name, and then we, started looking it up because we'd never seen her before. She had 2 tattoos on her forehead.
There's no way. Dad hated tattoos. Dad did not associate with those kind of people, and there's just no way. We didn't believe it.
After a month-long investigation, 23-year-old Nistasha Tater has been charged for the murder of Jimmy Pearson. As prosecutors prepare the case for trial, the evidence against her continues to grow.
All of the evidence from the ballistics are all indicating the gun that was in her car 12 minutes after she left the house is the gun that caused his death.
Prosecutors believe the shooting was part of a premeditated plan.
She, as the evidence would indicate, was influenced and manipulated and trafficked in her past. And this was her one opportunity to turn things around and take control on her own. But she needed money to do that.
But as the court date approaches, Nistasha decides to make a deal instead of going before a jury.
If we were to go to trial, we might not be able to prove the first-degree murder. Since we don't have any eyewitnesses as to what actually happened in there, it's all circumstantial evidence. We came to agreement that she would plead to the second-degree murder, which is also a true life sentence, but with consideration of parole after 25 years.
We said that we would be fine with doing that plea if she would give us a statement as to what happened and how it happened and why it happened.
In December 2021, Nistasha gives Jimmy's family what they asked for.
Her statement was that she had been up a few nights on a binger, drinking and doing drugs, and that when she had gotten over there, they had a drink, and then they had went to the room and had a drink in there, and then she was going to give him a back massage, and she reached down into her bag and pulled out a gun, and he moved and it went off. And then she panicked and didn't know what to do.
She claims that it was an accident, yet she robbed him still and fled. If it was truly an accident, you probably would have made different choices.
She was looking for a gun. It's not self-defense. It's not an accident. It's something that was motivated by money and greed.
I don't believe it was even the truth of actually how things went down. I think it was premeditated, 100%.
She took away my dad. She took away my best friend, the one that I looked up to, my kids' grandfather that they'll never get to know. She took away our future with him. And yeah, it's horrible. Something that you can't get back. Sometimes I think about setting up a time to go and see her in prison and ask her for myself face to face. But then I go back and don't want to give her that time of day. Maybe someday I will.
Jim should be remembered as someone to aspire to on so many levels, as a father figure, as an entrepreneur, a business owner. There are a lot of outstanding qualities one would aspire to.
Jimmy was a truly compassionate and kind soul and giving. His daughters that have now taken over A1 Hawk, they completely live by his life with everything. The businesses ran the same exact way that Jim ran it, even listening to the same radio station for the past 8 years.
My sister and I having sticking together, and as much as we, it's hard, especially both being hurt, that we just have to stick together. Dad is still teaching us from up above. We think about all of the good memories that we had with our dad. He will never be forgotten. I don't think that there's an hour that goes by that he doesn't cross my mind.
The concept of the home as a sanctuary is one of the most fundamental tenets of human civilization. It is the place where individuals retreat to find safety, comfort, and the warmth of familial bonds. Yet, when that sanctuary is breached, not by an external threat but by someone invited within, the tragedy is magnified tenfold. In the quiet city of Pasco, Washington, known for its scenic beauty and peaceful reputation, this very subversion of trust unfolded in a manner that would eventually capture the attention of the nation. The events of March 3rd, the year 2011, serve as a stark reminder of how greed, entitlement, and manipulation can disintegrate the most sacred of family dynamics, and how the vigilance of a community, combined with the quiet wisdom of a victim, can ensure that justice ultimately prevails. That cool spring morning, the tranquil routine of West Pasco was suddenly interrupted by a call to the 911 emergency response line. The call itself was brief and deeply unsettling. To the seasoned dispatcher, the interaction raised immediate warning signs. When the line connected, the typical protocol of asking for the emergency was met with an unsettling silence, followed by the distant, high-pitched ringing of a smoke detector. When the dispatcher attempted to re-establish contact, a woman answered, her voice laced with a subtle tension that belied her calm words. She claimed that the smoke detector had simply gone off while she was trying to change its battery, apologizing for the inconvenience and stating that everything was fine before quickly hanging up the phone. Despite her attempts to minimize the situation, the dispatcher noted a tremor of distress in the caller's voice. Standard operating procedures dictate that emergency dispatchers must treat every hang-up or aborted emergency call with a high degree of caution. It is a routine but critical safety measure ensuring that a silent victim is not being coerced into dismissing help. A patrol officer was dispatched to the residence on Salmon Drive to conduct a standard welfare check. It took approximately 14 minutes for the officer to arrive at the peaceful suburban home. Upon walking up to the front door, the officer heard the sound of dogs barking inside, a common domestic occurrence that did not immediately suggest danger. When he knocked, the door was answered by 37-year-old Tashia Stewart. She appeared composed, repeating the story she had told the dispatcher on the phone, explaining that a smoke detector had malfunctioned and there was absolutely no reason for concern. The officer, adhering to protocol, explained that he needed to step inside briefly to verify that no crime had been committed and that everyone in the household was safe. Tashia requested a moment to secure the family dogs in another room to prevent them from interfering with the officer. As the officer waited on the porch, a critical intervention occurred that completely changed the trajectory of the response. Across the street, a neighbor named Ryan Rhodes was working on his truck's engine. He had been outside for some time and had heard sounds that were entirely inconsistent with a simple battery replacement or a minor kitchen mishap. Ryan had heard the distinct, sharp reports of gunfire echoing from the house, followed by the immediate, frantic ringing of the indoor smoke alarms. He had even seen the front window of the home physically vibrate from the pressure of the discharge. Seeing the officer standing calmly on the porch, apparently accepting the explanation of a simple alarm malfunction, Ryan walked across the street to intervene. He informed the officer in no uncertain terms that he had heard gunshots, not a smoke detector battery change, and expressed grave concern for the other occupants of the home, specifically Judy Hebert, the 58-year-old homeowner, and Tashia S.'s 7-year-old daughter. This vital piece of citizen intelligence transformed the welfare check from a routine inquiry into a potential active crime scene. Armed with this new information, the officer knocked on the door again with renewed urgency. When Tashia opened the door, the officer did not hesitate. He bypassed her and entered the home to perform a safety sweep. In the hallway ahead, his eyes met a tragic sight. Judy Hebert was lying motionless on the floor. She was clearly deceased, and any hope of rendering medical aid was quickly lost. Next to her body lay a hatchet, and she was still holding a cordless telephone and a paper file folder. Tashia immediately claimed that she had acted in self-defense, asserting that her mother had attacked her with the hatchet, leaving her with no choice but to fire her weapon. To understand how this domestic arrangement reached such a devastating conclusion, one must look closely at the history of the family. Judy Hebert was born as a twin in June of the year 1952 in Amarillo, Texas, while Judy grew up to be a reserved, warm, and highly stable individual who found joy in the creative arts, sewing, and gardening. Her twin sister followed a much more volatile path. In the year 1972, her sister gave birth to Tashia. Recognizing that her unstable lifestyle made it difficult to provide a proper upbringing for her daughter, she turned to Judy for assistance. Judy, alongside her husband Rolf Hebert, opened her heart and her home. They formally adopted Tashia when she was young, raising her as their ove-kept-no daughter, with all the love, care, and resources they could provide. Despite their best efforts to offer a stable environment, Tashia exhibited behavioral challenges from an early age, frequently running away, engaging in deceptive behavior, and demonstrating a persistent sense of entitlement. As Tashia reached adulthood, she obtained employment as a certified nursing assistant and became a mother herself, giving birth to a daughter in the year 2004. After a relationship with her daughter's father ended, she married a man named Todd Stewart. However, the couple struggled with chronic financial instability, frequently moving and finding it difficult to maintain steady employment. By the beginning of the year 2011, Tashia and Todd had fallen on exceptionally hard times, facing the prospect of homelessness with a young child to support. Once again, Judy's nurturing and generous nature prevailed. Although she had recently gone through a difficult divorce from her husband of several decades, Rolf, who remained her close friend and confidant, Judy welcomed Tashia, Todd, and her beloved 7-year-old granddaughter into her West Pasco home. Judy was thrilled to be a grandmother, spending her days teaching her granddaughter about gardening, nature, and the master gardener's secrets she held dear. She hoped the arrangement would give the young family a chance to save money and eventually secure their own independent housing. Instead, the generous gesture marked the beginning of a dark period of exploitation. Almost immediately upon moving in, Tashia and Todd began taking advantage of Judy's finances. Judy, who suffered from chronic health issues, trusted her daughter with her bank debit card to purchase household necessities, groceries, and medicine. Tashia, however, began using the card for unauthorized personal purchases and cash withdrawals, systematically draining Judy's modest savings. When Judy discovered the financial discrepancies, she confronted her daughter, leading to escalating arguments within the household. The tension reached a boiling point, prompting Todd to leave the residence a few days prior to the shooting, claiming he could no longer tolerate the tumultuous environment. When investigators took Tashia to the police station for questioning, they meticulously analyzed her self-defense narrative. She claimed that during a heated argument over the missing bank funds, Judy had suddenly brandished a hatchet and attacked her. Tashia alleged a desperate physical struggle over the weapon, during which she managed to strike Judy in the head with the hatchet before running into the master bedroom. She claimed she found a .357 caliber revolver inside a safe that Judy had left open, and used the weapon to defend herself as her mother continued the assault. However, as experienced investigators know, the physical evidence at a crime scene speaks a silent, objective language that often contradicts the words of a suspect. The physical state of the home was the first clue that raised suspicions. There were absolutely no signs of a violent struggle. The furniture was undisturbed, and the house remained in a neat, orderly condition, which was highly inconsistent with a desperate, life-or-death tussle over a hatchet. Furthermore, the positioning of the physical evidence around Judy's body presented a physical impossibility. Judy was found holding a cordless phone and a file folder containing bank statements and Tashia's birth certificate. For Judy to have been actively swinging a hatchet at her daughter while simultaneously holding a telephone and a paper file folder defied all logical physical coordination. The file folder itself contained a chilling piece of forensic evidence. Upon closer inspection, forensic technicians discovered blood spatter on the exterior of the folder and a clean bullet hole passing directly through the paper. This indicated that Judy was holding the folder protectively in front of her chest when the bullet was fired. She was not wielding an axe. She was holding the physical evidence of her daughter's financial theft, likely preparing to hand it to the police or reading from it during a call to emergency services. This theory was corroborated by the recording of the 911 call. When investigators enhanced the audio of the initial call, They could hear the unmistakable sound of a gunshot, followed by faint, desperate verbal exchanges, including requests to stop, before the line went dead. The medical examiner's findings delivered the final blow to Tashia's self-defense claim. The autopsy revealed that Judy had suffered a deep laceration to her scalp, consistent with being struck by the hatchet. However, there was a distinct lack of hemorrhaging around the wound. In a living person, a head wound of that magnitude would bleed profusely due to the high pressure of the cardiovascular system. The absence of significant bleeding proved that Judy's heart was no longer beating when her head was struck. The wound was inflicted post-mortem. Tasha had shot her mother first, and then, in a calculated effort to fabricate a self-defense narrative, she had struck her mother's deceased body with the hatchet and placed it nearby to stage the scene. As investigators delved deeper, they uncovered a pattern of premeditation that stretched back weeks before the fatal shooting. The 7-year-old granddaughter was interviewed by a child specialist and provided crucial insights. She revealed that on the day of the shooting, her mother had placed her in a bedroom, turned the television volume to its maximum level, and instructed her to stay inside. Shortly thereafter, the child heard the loud noise of the gunshot. This deliberate action demonstrated that Tasha was planning the confrontation and attempted to shield her daughter from witnessing the crime, indicating a high level of calculated preparation rather than a sudden, impulsive act of self-defense. The motive for the crime extended far beyond a dispute over a few $100s. Investigators discovered that Judy had recently grown deeply suspicious of Tasha and Todd's intentions. She had visited her attorney to modify her will, significantly reducing Tashia's inheritance and placing her assets, including the home, into a trust for her 7-year-old granddaughter, ensuring that Tasha could not easily access the funds. When Tasha realized she had been cut out of the estate, she began attempting to bypass the security of Judy's safe to locate the will and find a way to alter it back to her benefit. She even reached out to her daughter's biological father, Charles, asking him to co-sign documents to grant her power of attorney over Judy, a request that Charles wisely refused. In a modern twist of digital forensics, investigators searched Tashia's mobile phone and discovered a video she had recorded. Tasha had secretly positioned her phone inside a closet, aiming the camera at the electronic keypad of Judy's safe. She captured footage of Judy entering the combination, allowing Tasha to learn the code and gain unauthorized access to her mother's private papers, wills, and firearms. This level of technological sophistication highlighted the deliberate, predatory nature of the crime. The investigation also revealed that the shooting was not the first attempt on Judy's life. Through interviews, they kept Itehat neighbors, including Ryan Rhodes and Tonya Amende. Police learned of a bizarre incident that occurred in the garage a few weeks prior. Judy had been assisting Todd Stewart with measuring the garage for drywall installation. While she was positioned under the wooden rafters, a heavy storage container loaded with dense books suddenly fell from above, striking Judy on the head and pinning her to the floor. Although Todd and Tasha claimed it was a tragic accident, they actively discouraged Judy from seeking immediate medical attention, keeping her bedridden for several days. When Judy finally visited the hospital, she confided in her friends and her ex-husband, Rolf, that she believed the incident was a deliberate attempt to end her life. She noted that the dust on top of the truck in the garage and around the rafters had been heavily disturbed, suggesting someone had crawled up there to position the heavy box to fall. Remarkably, Judy had conducted her own preliminary investigation. Detectives found a digital camera in her bedroom safe containing photographs of the garage rafters, the disturbed dust, and the storage container. Judy was quietly documenting the evidence of the attempt on her life, realizing that her safety was in grave jeopardy. She had even established a secret code word with her neighbor, instructing them to call the police immediately if she ever used the word during their conversations. Tragically, Judy's desire to protect her granddaughter and keep the family together prevented her from taking definitive action or leaving the home before the violence escalated on March 3rd. Following these revelations, an arrest warrant was issued for Todd Stewart for his alleged role in the attempted murder in the garage. Todd had fled the state shortly before the shooting and was eventually located in California, working as a volunteer on the historic aircraft carrier, the United States ship Hornet. He was taken into custody but was ultimately acquitted of the attempted murder charges during his trial in September of the year 2012, as the jury felt there was insufficient direct evidence to prove his active participation beyond a reasonable doubt, viewing Tasha as the primary mastermind. Tasha Stewart's trial commenced in May of the year 2013. Throughout the proceedings, she maintained a stoic, emotionless demeanor, attempting to project the image of a fragile, soft-spoken woman who had been pushed to the brink by an abusive mother. However, the prosecution's presentation of the post-mortem hatchet wound, the bullet hole through the file folder, the recorded phone video of the safe combination, and the testimony of her own daughter dismantled her defense. After a 5-week trial, the jury deliberated for less than 2 days before finding Tasha Stewart guilty of first-degree murder ve kepte, aggravating circumstances, and attempted first-degree murder. She was sentenced to 45 years in prison. This tragic case offers several profound life lessons and analytical insights into the nature of domestic crimes and community vigilance. First, it highlights the phenomenon of family-assisted financial exploitation, which frequently escalates to physical violence when the perpetrator's access to resources is threatened. The motive in such cases is often driven by an intense sense of entitlement, coupled with a refusal to accept personal responsibility for financial difficulties. When boundaries are established, such as Judy changing her will and canceling her compromised debit card, the perpetrator perceives this as an existential threat, leading to extreme measures to regain control. Second, the case underscores the critical importance of community vigilance. If not for the observant neighbor, Ryan Rhodes, who noticed the physical vibration of the window and insisted that the responding officer ignore the suspect's excuses, the crime might not have been discovered until much later, potentially allowing the perpetrator to dispose of evidence or flee. It serves as a reminder that neighbors should trust their instincts and report anomalies, even when a situation appears outwardly resolved. For law enforcement, the case provides valuable insights into handling emergency line hang-ups and domestic calls. It emphasizes that officers must conduct thorough, independent verifications of safety, rather than relying solely on the verbal assurances of the individual who answers the door. The rapid preservation of digital evidence, such as analyzing mobile phones for hidden videos or deleted files, is also paramount in modern investigations, as it often reveals the hidden preparations of a premeditated crime. Ultimately, the story of Judy Hebert is one of tragic self-sacrifice and the triumph of justice. She was a woman who sought only to provide a safe, loving environment for her granddaughter and a second chance for her daughter. Even in her final moments, as she held the documents proving the betrayal she had suffered, she attempted to reach out for help. Through her own foresight in documenting the prior attempt on her life and preserving the evidence in her safe, she spoke from beyond the grave to ensure that the truth would be known, allowing the justice system to hold her perpetrator accountable and protect her beloved granddaughter from further harm. The bonds of family are often considered the most secure and sacred foundations of human society. Across cultures and generations, the home is envisioned as a sanctuary, a place of safety and mutual support where individuals can seek refuge from the challenges of the external world. When this sanctuary is breached, not by an outside threat but from within, it challenges the very understanding of trust and human connection. The city of Pasco in the state of Washington, situated in a scenic region known for its rivers and peaceful communities, became the unexpected setting for a profound tragedy that would illustrate this dark disruption of familial trust. On a spring day in the year 2011, a series of events unfolded in a quiet neighborhood that would reveal a complex web of deception, greed, and ultimate betrayal. The investigation that followed would not only seek justice for a beloved woman, but would also uncover the lengths to which a person might go when driven by material desire and resentment. The quiet of the neighborhood on Salmon Drive was suddenly interrupted on the afternoon of March 3, 2011, when emergency dispatchers received a highly unusual call. The interaction began with silence, followed by the sound of a telephone line disconnecting. In accordance with established safety protocols, the dispatcher immediately initiated a callback to the number. When the connection was re-established, the audible environment on the other end of the line was filled with the persistent, high-pitched shrilling of a smoke detector. A female voice answered, claiming that the alarm had been triggered accidentally during an attempt to replace the battery. The caller expressed apology and insisted that everything was fine, abruptly ending the conversation. Despite the attempt to minimize the situation, the dispatcher noted a distinct tone of distress in the voice of the caller. This subtle clue, combined with standard operating procedures regarding hang-up calls, prompted the dispatch of a patrol officer to conduct a welfare check at the residence. 14 minutes after the initial call, an officer arrived at the single-family home on Salmon Drive. Upon approaching the front door, the officer knocked and heard the sound of barking dogs within the house. A woman who identified herself as Tasha Stewart answered the door and reiterated the explanation that a simple kitchen mishap or an alarm battery issue had caused the disturbance, assuring the officer that no assistance was needed. The officer, obligated to verify the safety of everyone inside, requested entry, but was asked to wait while the resident secured the dogs. It was during this brief waiting period that a vital development occurred. A neighbor named Ryan Rhodes, who had been working on a vehicle engine across the street, approached the officer with urgent information. Ryan Rhodes reported that he had clearly heard the distinctive sounds of 2 gunshots emanating from the home, followed by the visible vibration of a window and the subsequent sounding of the smoke alarms. He emphasized that an elderly woman and a young child resided in the home, urging the officer to take immediate action. Armed with this critical witness testimony, the officer realized that the situation was far more serious than a simple smoke detector malfunction. When Tasha Stewart returned to the door, the officer bypassed her objections and entered the residence. Inside the hallway, the officer discovered the motionless body of 58-year-old Judy Hebert Mott. It was immediately apparent that she had suffered catastrophic injuries and was deceased Mott. The scene was instantly secured. Emergency medical services were summoned, and additional police units were dispatched to the location. The young granddaughter of Judy Hebert, who was 7 years old, was found unharmed in another room of the house, Moat High. She was gently escorted from the home by the authorities to ensure her safety and to prevent her from witnessing the grim scene in the hallway. Tasha Stewart was detained and placed in the back of a patrol unit while investigators prepared to obtain the necessary warrants to conduct a thorough search of the property. To understand the tragic culmination of events on that March afternoon, it is necessary to examine the history of the family. Judy Hebert was born on June 13, 1952, in the state of Texas, alongside her twin sister Jody. Although twins, the sisters developed vastly different personalities and chose divergent paths in life. Judy was known as a gentle, reserved, and artistic soul who sought stability and a peaceful existence. Jody, on the other hand, led a more transient and complicated life. When Jody gave birth to a daughter named Tasha in 1972, she quickly realized that her lifestyle was not conducive to raising a child. In an act of profound sisterly love and compassion, Judy agreed to take custody of the infant girl and raise her as her own child, determined to provide her with a stable and nurturing environment. During the early years of raising Tasha, Judy met a talented artist and metalworker named Rolf Hebert. The two formed a deep and lasting bond, eventually marrying. Rolf embraced the role of a father vekep itehat, great warmth and enthusiasm, and the couple formally adopted Tasha, solidifying their family unit. The family moved to various locations, including parts of Idaho and California, supporting Rolf's artistic endeavors while striving to give Tasha every opportunity to succeed. Despite their best efforts, Tasha began to exhibit behavioral challenges as she entered her teenage years. Her parents faced a persistent cycle of untruthfulness, running away, and associations with troubled individuals. Judy and Rolf consistently attempted to guide her, offering unconditional love and support, yet the emotional distance between the parents and the daughter seemed to widen as Tasha grew older. By the time Tasha reached her 30s, she had trained as a certified nursing assistant and appeared to have settled into a more stable life. In 2004, she gave birth to a daughter with her partner, Charles. Although that relationship eventually ended, Tasha later married a man named Todd Stewart, who took on the role of stepfather to her young daughter. Meanwhile, Judy experienced a major life transition when she and Rolf decided to divorce after decades of marriage. Despite the separation, the two remained exceptionally close friends, with Rolf continuing to support Judy and showing deep care for her well-being. At the age of 55, in the year 2007, Judy purchased a lovely home in West Pasco to begin her new chapter high. She quickly became a cornerstone of her new neighborhood, known for her beautiful garden, her generous nature, and her deep devotion to her granddaughter. In January of 2011, the peaceful life that Judy had built on Salmon Drive was disrupted when Tasha, Todd, and their young daughter arrived at her doorstep seeking assistance. Haiba. The couple had fallen on severe financial hardships, having lost their housing and struggling to maintain stable employment. Driven by her deep love for her granddaughter and her desire to keep the young girl safe and secure, Judy welcomed the family into her home. Haiba. She envisioned a temporary arrangement where Tasha and Todd could regain their financial footing, while she enjoyed the opportunity to bond with her beloved granddaughter. The relationship between the grandmother and the young girl was exceptionally close, characterized by shared hours in the garden, where Judy taught her about plants and nature. However, the domestic harmony was short-lived as financial pressures and interpersonal dynamics began to create a highly toxic environment. It did not take long for Judy to realize that her generosity was being abused. As Tasha and Todd remained unemployed, Judy discovered that significant sums of money were disappearing from her bank accounts. She had previously allowed Tasha to use her debit card for specific family necessities, but she soon noticed unauthorized transactions that indicated her daughter was systematically draining her savings. This discovery led to intense arguments within the household bone. During her subsequent interrogation by detectives, Tasha claimed that the escalating tension was entirely due to her mother paranoia and erratic behavior, which she blamed on new medication Judy was taking for chronic pain, Hi-Nam. Tasha told investigators that, on the morning of March 3rd, Judy had confronted her in a rage over the missing funds bone. She claimed that Judy had attacked her with a hatchet, forcing her to flee into a bedroom closet where she knew her mother kept a registered .357 Magnum revolver in a safe sow. Tasha asserted that she grabbed the firearm and shot her mother purely to defend her own life. As seasoned investigators began to process the crime scene, the narrative of self-defense presented by Tasha Stewart began to dissolve under the weight of objective physical evidence. While Tasha claimed that her mother had pursued her with a deadly weapon, the physical state of the hallway and the master bedroom showed no signs of a violent struggle. Everything was in an orderly condition, which was highly inconsistent with a desperate fight for survival. Furthermore, the positioning of the body and the items associated with the victim provided undeniable clues. Judy Hebert was found holding a cordless telephone in one hand and a paper file folder in the other tam. A detailed examination of the folder revealed a bullet hole that aligned perfectly with a wound on Judy's hand and a subsequent fatal wound to her chest, Multam. It became clear that at the moment she was shot, Judy was not wielding a hatchet, but was instead clutching documents and a telephone, likely in an attempt to contact the authorities. Another critical piece of forensic evidence involved the head injury discovered during the examination of the victim, Mott Chin. Judy had sustained a significant laceration to the back of her scalp, which Tasha claimed had occurred during their physical struggle over the hatchet chin. However, medical examiners noted a complete lack of hemorrhaging around the head wound. In a living person, a scalp wound of that magnitude would bleed profusely due to the rich supply of blood vessels. The absence of blood indicating active circulation proved that the blow to the head was delivered after Judy's heart had stopped beating. This finding strongly suggested that after shooting her mother, Tasha had retrieved the hatchet and struck the deceased victim in an attempt to stage a scene of mutual combat to support her fabricated story of self-defense. Additionally, investigators recovered Tasha's cell phone and discovered a highly incriminating video. Tasha had hidden her phone in the closet to secretly record her mother entering the combination to her electronic safe, demonstrating a premeditated effort to gain unauthorized access to the secure vault. The motive for the crime became increasingly apparent as detectives delved deeper into the financial and legal affairs of Judy Hebert. Inside the safe, investigators located bank statements confirming the systematic theft of funds by Tasha. More significantly, they uncovered documents related to Judy estate planning. Originally, Judy had drafted a will that left the entirety of her estate, including her home and savings, to Tasha. However, as the relationship deteriorated and Judy recognized the manipulative and financially irresponsible behavior of her daughter, she had consulted an attorney to modify her will. The revised document redirected the bulk of her assets into a secure trust for the benefit of her 7-year-old granddaughter, ensuring that Tasha could not directly access the inheritance. Tasha had discovered this change and had unsuccessfully attempted to persuade the father of her child to coet the Gano documents that would restore her as the primary beneficiary. Having failed to alter the legal documents through other means, Tasha apparently decided that eliminating her mother was the only way to secure the property and wealth she felt entitled to receive. The investigation took an even more sinister turn. Rona when neighbors and family members revealed that the shooting was likely not the first attempt on Judy, Life Haiba. Approximately 1 month prior, in February of 2011, a highly suspicious incident had occurred in the garage of the residence Haiba. Judy had been assisting her son-in-law, Todd Stewart, with measuring the garage area for a home improvement project Haiba. While she was holding one end of a measuring tape, a massive plastic storage bin filled they keep. Tehat heavy books fell from the high rafters above, striking her directly on the head and pinning her to the floor. Haiba. She suffered severe injuries and was left in extreme pain. Yet Tasha and Todd notably delayed seeking medical attention for her, keeping her bedridden in the home for several days. Before she finally visited a hospital high, Judy confided in her close neighbor Ryan Rhodes that she was deeply suspicious of the incident, expressing a profound fear that her daughter and son-in-law were actively trying to end her life. But she even told Ryan that if he ever disappeared, he should look for her body in the backyard. She and Ryan even established a code word that she could use to signal him to call the police if she felt in imminent danger. In a remarkable testament to her intelligence and survival instincts, Judy Hebert had taken steps to document her suspicions prior to her death. During the search of her master bedroom safe, investigators discovered a digital camera belonging to the victim. Upon reviewing the images stored on the device, detectives found photographs of the garage rafters, the storage bin, and the surrounding area where the incident had occurred. Judy had systematically photographed the scene of her near-fatal injury, preserving the physical evidence of what she believed was an attempt on her life. It was as if the victim was communicating directly with the police from beyond the grave, providing the crucial clues necessary to expose the true nature of her daughter's actions. This evidence allowed prosecutors to charge Tasha Stewart not only vekep I tehat murder, but also with first-degree attempted murder for the earlier garage incident Mothai. With a clear pattern of premeditated violence established, investigators turned their attention to Todd Stewart, who had left the residence just days before the fatal shooting. A warrant was issued for his arrest on charges of attempted first-degree murder in connection with the garage incident. Police launched a multi-state search to locate him, eventually tracking him to Northern California. Todd had traveled to the area and was found working as a volunteer on the historical vessel, the United States ship Hornet, a famous retired aircraft carrier. In January of 2012, detectives traveled to California to take him into custody. During his interrogation, Todd denied any involvement in the garage incident or any knowledge of Tasha's plans to harm her mother, claiming that he had fled the home simply because he was exhausted by the constant marital conflict and the toxic arguments between Tasha and Judy. The legal proceedings began with the trial of Todd Stewart in September of 2012. Despite the suspicious circumstances surrounding the garage incident, the jury ultimately acquitted him of all charges, concluding that there was insufficient direct evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had actively participated in the attempt on Judy's life. Jurors later indicated that they viewed Tasha as the sole mastermind behind the schemes. In May of 2013, Tasha Stewart stood trial for the murder and attempted murder of her mother, Hai Bei. Throughout the 5-week trial, she maintained a cold and emotionless demeanor, refusing to testify. The prosecution presented a mountain of forensic and circumstantial evidence, including the blood spatter on the file folder, the post-mortem nature of the head wound, the hidden phone video, and the photographic evidence Judy had preserved Tam. The jury quickly rejected the claim of self-defense, finding Tasha Stewart guilty of first-degree murder ve keptehat, aggravating circumstances, and first-degree attempted murder Hai Bei. She was sentenced to 45 years in prison, ensuring that she would spend the majority of her remaining life behind bars. Nam. When analyzing cases of severe domestic violence and familial homicide, it is essential to examine the underlying psychological and sociological motives that drive individuals to commit such acts. Crimes of this nature, though shocking, are frequently rooted in a combination of long-standing relational dysfunction, intense financial pressure, and deep-seated personality disorders. In many instances, perpetrators exhibit traits of antisocial and narcissistic personality disorders, characterized by a profound lack of empathy, a strong sense of entitlement, and a willingness to manipulate and exploit others for personal gain. When these individuals experience severe financial stress, such as chronic unemployment or mounting debt, their perceived needs can override all moral boundaries. The victim, often a generous family member who has repeatedly offered support, eventually becomes viewed not as a loved one, but as an obstacle to financial security or personal freedom. Another critical factor in the occurrence of these tragic cases is the cycle of codependency, and enabling that can develop within families. Parents, driven by natural protective instincts, often continue to support and shelter adult children who exhibit severe behavioral issues, hoping that stability and unconditional love will eventually inspire positive change. Unfortunately, in cases involving highly manipulative individuals, this support can be misinterpreted as a sign of weakness or a guarantee of endless resources. When the enabling parent finally attempts to set firm boundaries, such as restricting access to funds or altering estate plans to protect assets, the manipulative individual may react with extreme anger and resentment. The sudden loss of control over financial resources can trigger a desperate and violent response. As the perpetrator perceives the boundary as an act of hostility rather than a necessary measure of self-preservation. The successful resolution of this case highlights the critical importance of meticulous forensic science and thorough scene investigation. In cases where a perpetrator claims self-defense, physical evidence is the most reliable tool for uncovering the truth. The trajectory of the bullet, the presence of blood spatter on specific items, and the biological evidence found on the weapons all play a vital role in reconstructing the sequence of events. In the case of Judy Hebert, the simple presence of a bullet hole through a paper file folder and her hand completely dismantled the assertion that she was actively attacking her daughter with a heavy hatchet. Furthermore, the application of forensic pathology to determine that the head wound was inflicted after death provided definitive proof of a staged crime scene, exposing the calculating nature of the perpetrator, Chin. In the modern era, digital forensics has become an indispensable asset for law enforcement. The analysis of mobile devices, computers, and cloud storage often reveals the true thoughts, plans, and motives of a suspect. In this case, the discovery of a hidden video on Tasha's cell phone captured her active attempt to obtain the combination to the safe, providing indisputable evidence of premeditation and theft. Equally important was the victim's own proactive preservation of evidence. By using a digital camera to photograph the scene of the suspicious garage incident, Judy Hebert ensured that her voice would be heard even in her absence. This unusual and courageous act of self-investigation serves as a powerful reminder that victims of domestic coercive control often possess a deep understanding of the dangers they face and can take critical steps to document their experiences. To prevent such profound family tragedies, communities must cultivate a high level of vigilance and establish robust support systems for vulnerable individuals. Domestic abuse is not limited to physical violence between romantic partners. It can also manifest as elder abuse, financial exploitation, and coercive control exerted by adult children. Neighbors, friends, and financial institutions must be trained to recognize the warning signs of such abuse, which include sudden changes in estate planning, unexplained withdrawals of funds, physical injuries explained away as accidents, and the social isolation of an elderly person. The establishment of community safety nets, where trusted neighbors maintain regular contact and agree upon discreet communication methods, such as the code word system devised by Judy and her neighbor, can save lives by facilitating early intervention. One of the most heart-wrenching aspects of this case is that Judy Hebert was acutely aware of the danger she faced. Yet she chose to remain in the home and avoid involving the police. This decision is often driven by a complex mix of love, guilt, and a desire to protect other family members, particularly young children, who may be caught in the middle of domestic turmoil. It is vital for society to convey the message that seeking professional help and contacting law enforcement is not an act of betrayal, but a necessary step to protect oneself and others from harm. By sharing these stories and analyzing the psychological underpinnings of domestic crime, we can educate the public on the importance of prioritizing safety over silence, honoring the memory of victims like Judy Hebert by working together to build safer, more supportive communities where justice and compassion prevail. The tragic loss of Judy Hebert left a profound void in her community and in the lives of those who knew her as a kind, creative, and gentle soul. Yet, through the tireless efforts of the investigating officers, the vigilance of a caring neighbor, and the quiet courage of Judy herself, through her documented photographs, the truth was brought to light. The justice system functioned as it was designed to, methodically dismantling a web of lies and holding the perpetrator accountable for her actions. This case serves as a powerful reminder that while evil may seek to operate in the shadows of deception, the light of truth and the dedication of those committed to justice will ultimately prevail. By remembering the life and legacy of Judy Hebert, we honor her memory and reinforce our shared commitment to protecting the vulnerable, fostering deep community connections, and ensuring that love and justice remain the guiding forces of our society. Let us carry forward these lessons, striving to be attentive neighbors, supportive friends, and active participants in the preservation of safety and peace within our neighborhoods. Let us also recognize the profound value of those who work in law enforcement, whose dedication to seeking the truth ensures that justice is served and that the memory of the innocent is preserved with the dignity and respect they so richly deserve. By learning from the past, we can build a brighter and safer future for all, inspiring a collective triumph of good over adversity. To fully grasp the magnitude of this case and the intricate journey toward justice, we must step back to the very beginning and walk through the chronological sequence of events with the highest level of detail possible. In the peaceful city of Pasco, Washington, nestled in the scenic Pacific Northwest, life typically moved at a quiet and predictable pace. The community on Salmon Drive was a collection of well-maintained homes where neighbors knew one another and shared a sense of mutual security. Judy Hebert had made this place her home in the year 2007, purchasing her house following a difficult divorce from her husband, Rolf Hebert High. She had spent decades with Rolf, and although their marriage had ended, their bond remained strong, characterized by a deep and abiding friendship. Judy was a master gardener, a woman who possessed a unique talent for nurturing life, transforming her yard into a beautiful oasis-filled vase kept Itahat vibrant plants and flowers high. She was also an artist and a highly skilled seamstress, known throughout the neighborhood as a warm, generous, and stabilizing presence. High. Behind the peaceful exterior of Judy life lay a complex family history that had begun decades earlier. Born on June 13, 1952, in Amarillo, Texas, Judy was part of a twin pair with her sister Jody. While Judy was reserved and sought a stable, quiet life, Jody was a free spirit who chose a more turbulent path. When Jody gave birth to a daughter named Tasha in 1972, she realized that she could not provide the baby with a suitable or safe upbringing. She turned to her twin sister Judy for assistance, asking her to raise Tasha as her own. Judy, despite her modest financial means, accepted this responsibility without hesitation, driven by a deep desire to give the infant a stable and loving foundation. When Judy later married Rolf Hebert, he embraced Tasha as his own daughter, and the couple formally adopted her, providing her with a secure and supportive home environment. Despite the nurturing environment provided by Judy and Rolf, Tasha exhibited serious behavioral difficulties from a young age. As a teenager, she frequently engaged in lying, running away, and associating with troubled peers, causing significant distress to her adoptive parents. Judy and Rolf made every effort to support her, offering guidance, boundaries, and unconditional love. Yet Tasha seemed to resist their efforts, displaying a persistent pattern of manipulation and entitlement. By the time Tasha reached her 30s, she had trained as a certified nursing assistant, raising hopes that she had finally established a stable life. In 2004, she had a daughter and later married Todd Stewart, who became her daughter's stepfather, High. However, the stability was fleeting, and the family eventually found themselves in severe financial distress. By January of 2011, Tasha, Todd, and their 7-year-old daughter were facing homelessness and severe financial instability. Haiba. Knowing her granddaughter was in need of a safe and stable environment, Judy opened her doors and invited the family to live with her in her Pasco home. Haiba. Judy was overjoyed to have her granddaughter nearby, and the two quickly developed an exceptionally close relationship, spending countless hours together in the garden. However, the presence of Tasha and Todd quickly introduced tension into the household. The couple was largely unemployed, doing only occasional odd jobs, and they possessed no steady source of income. It did not take long for Judy to realize that her generosity was being met vekep itehat exploitation, as she discovered unauthorized transactions on her bank accounts and realized that Tasha was stealing from her. The financial betrayal led to frequent and intense arguments within the home. Judy, who suffered from fibromyalgia and managed her chronic pain with medication, felt increasingly vulnerable and threatened by her daughter's manipulative behavior. In February of 2011, a terrifying incident occurred in the garage of the home, Ba. Judy was helping Todd measure the space for drywall when a large, heavy storage bin filled vekep hot books fell from the high rafters, striking her on the head and pinning her to the concrete floor, Ba. She suffered severe bruising and intense pain, yet Tasha and Todd delayed taking her to the hospital for 5 days, keeping her bedridden in the house. Judy grew deeply suspicious of the incident, believing it was a deliberate attempt on her life, and she confided her fears in her neighbor Ryan Rhodes, telling him that if she ever disappeared, he should look for her body in the backyard bada. She and Ryan even established a code word that she could use to signal him to call the police if she felt in imminent danger. Despite her fears, Judy was reluctant to contact the police directly, largely because she feared that Tasha and Todd would leave and take her beloved granddaughter away from her. To protect her granddaughter, Judy chose to stay in the home, but she also took brilliant proactive steps to protect herself. She took her digital camera into the garage and photographed the rafters, the storage bin, and the scene of the incident, storing the camera securely in her bedroom safe. She also consulted an attorney and altered her will, diverting her estate away from Tasha and placing it into a secure trust for her granddaughter. Tasha discovered this change and unsuccessfully tried to find ways to alter the will back, even attempting to obtain the combination to Judy's safe by hiding her cell phone in the closet to record her mother entering the key code. The tension reached a critical breaking point on the morning of March 3, 2011. On. Judy confronted Tasha over the ongoing theft of her funds and decided to contact the police to report the crime. As Judy was holding a file folder of financial documents and her cordless phone, Tasha retrieved Judy registered .357 Magnum revolver from the closet Tom. The 7-year-old daughter was placed in a bedroom with the television volume turned up to the maximum level to drown out the sounds of what was about to transpire high. In the hallway, Tasha confronted her mother and fired 3 shots. Tam. One of the powerful rounds passed through the file folder Judy was holding, through her hand, and directly into her chest, causing fatal injuries. The immense smoke from the powerful firearm triggered the home smoke detectors, which was captured on the recording of the 911 call that Judy had initiated just as she was attacked. After the shooting, Tasha received a call back from the 911 dispatcher, offering a fabricated story about an accidental smoke detector alarm during a battery change. She then attempted to stage the scene to support a claim of self-defense, retrieving a hatchet and placing it near her mother's body, even striking the deceased victim on the back of the head to create the appearance of a physical struggle. However, her plans were quickly dismantled by the arrival of the police officer and the critical testimony of the neighbor, Ryan Rhodes, who had heard the gunshots and insisted that the officer enter the home. The subsequent forensic investigation, led by the dedicated team at the Pasco Police Department, systematically exposed Tasha lies. The path of the bullet through the file folder, the lack of bleeding from the post-mortem head wound, the hidden phone video, and the photographic evidence preserved on the camera in the safe all provided undeniable proof of first-degree murder and attempted murder tam chin. The prosecution of the case proceeded methodically, seeking to hold both Tasha and Todd accountable for their actions high. Todd Stewart was located in Northern California, volunteering on the historic United States ship Hornet, and was arrested for his alleged role in the garage incident. Although he was ultimately acquitted due to a lack of direct evidence, the jury in Tasha trial in May of 2013 reached a different conclusion, high bay. Over the course of a 5-week trial, the state presented a comprehensive and devastating case that highlighted Tasha's financial greed, her premeditated attempts to access the safe, her efforts to falsify the will, and her calculated staging of the crime scene, high bone. The jury found Tasha Stewart guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, vekep itehat aggravating circumstances, and first-degree attempted murder high bay. She was sentenced to 45 years in prison, bringing a sense of closure and justice to a community that had been deeply shaken by the loss of a beloved neighbor and mother Nam. The story of Judy Hebert is a profound reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the ultimate triumph of justice. Even in her final days, facing immense fear and betrayal, Judy took intelligent steps to protect her legacy and her granddaughter, leaving behind the very clues that would expose her killer Ba. Her life, dedicated to creativity, gardening, and family, is remembered with deep respect and affection by her neighbors and friends high. By analyzing this tragic case, we gain valuable insights into the psychological dynamics of domestic crime, the vital importance of community vigilance, and the power of forensic science to reveal the truth, Tom. Let us carry forward these lessons, fostering strong bonds of support in our own communities and ensuring that the memory of those who lived vekep, hat kindness and generosity is honored through our collective commitment to justice and safety. This detailed analysis and retelling of the events of 2011 stands as a tribute to the enduring power of truth and the dedication of the investigators who worked tirelessly to ensure that justice was served. The quiet streets of Pasco, Washington, have long been associated with the peaceful, scenic charm of the Tri-City area, a region where neighbors generally know one another, and violent crime is a rare exception to the daily rhythm of life. Yet, on the morning of March 3, 2011, this tranquility was shattered by a sequence of events that would ultimately reveal a deeply disturbing story of familial betrayal, greed, and calculated violence. The case of Judy Hebert, a loving grandmother and master gardener, is a stark reminder of how the most dangerous threats can sometimes emerge from within one's own household, and how the pursuit of material gain can drive an individual to commit the ultimate act of betrayal against the very person who nurtured them. To understand the tragic culmination of this case, one must examine the delicate web of relationships that define Judy Hebert's life. Born Judy DeLong on June 13, 1952, in Amarillo, Texas, she grew up alongside her twin sister, Jody. While the twin sisters shared an identical genetic bond, their life paths diverged significantly as they reached adulthood. Judy was a reserved, artistic, and deeply stable individual who sought the comfort of a structured, peaceful life. She possessed a remarkable talent for sewing, a deep appreciation for the arts, and an enduring love for gardening that would later define her presence in her neighborhood. Jody, by contrast, led a far more volatile and transient lifestyle, eventually finding herself working in the adult entertainment industry and struggling to maintain structural stability. In 1972, 20-year-old Jody gave birth to a daughter named Tasha. Recognizing that her lifestyle was incompatible with the responsibilities of motherhood, Jody turned to her sister Judy, asking if she would raise the infant as her own. Judy, driven by a deep sense of family duty and maternal warmth, agreed without hesitation, committing herself to providing the young child with a safe and nurturing upbringing. Shortly after taking in Tasha, Judy met Rolf Hebert, an intelligent, warm-hearted artist and metalworker who would become the love of her life. Rolf embraced Tasha as his own daughter, and the couple formally adopted her. Together, the family moved across several states, spending time in California and northern Idaho, where Rolf pursued his artistic endeavors. Throughout Tasha's childhood and teenage years, Judy and Rolf did everything within their power to provide her with a supportive environment. However, Tasha proved to be a difficult child, displaying a persistent tendency toward dishonesty, running away, and associating with problematic companions. Despite these ongoing challenges, her adoptive parents remained steadfast, offering guidance and support in the hope that she would eventually find her footing in adulthood. By the time Tasha reached her 30s, she appeared to have achieved some degree of stability. She trained as a certified nursing assistant and, in 2004, gave birth to a daughter. Although her relationship with the child's father, Charles, did not last, Tasha later married a man named Todd, who assumed the role of stepfather to her young daughter. Judy was overjoyed by the birth of her granddaughter, viewing the child as a source of immense pride and happiness. However, Judy's personal life underwent a significant transition when her decades-long marriage to Rolf came to an end. Despite the divorce, which was a source of great sadness for Judy, she and Rolf maintained a deep bond of mutual respect and friendship, with Judy often describing him as the love of her life. At the age of 55, Judy began a new chapter by purchasing a home in Pasco, Washington, in March of 2007. She quickly became a beloved fixture in her new neighborhood. Known as a master gardener, Judy transformed her yard into a vibrant sanctuary of plants and flowers, willingly sharing her knowledge, time, and resources with anyone who asked. Her neighbors came to view her as the gentle anchor of the community, a warm and thoughtful woman who lived quietly with her dogs. This peaceful existence continued until January of 2011, when Tasha, Todd, and Judy's 7-year-old granddaughter arrived at her doorstep. Tasha and Todd had fallen into severe financial distress, having lost their housing and employment. Motivated by a profound desire to ensure her granddaughter's safety and well-being, Judy opened her home to the struggling family, hoping that this temporary arrangement would provide them with the stability needed to rebuild their lives. Unfortunately, the arrangement quickly deteriorated as Tasha and Todd showed little interest in securing steady employment, relying instead on Judy's generosity. The financial strain escalated when Judy discovered that her bank account was being systematically depleted, having trusted Tasha with her debit card for specific, essential purchases such as groceries and medicine. Judy realized that her daughter had been using the card repeatedly without authorization. This discovery sparked intense conflict within the household as Judy confronted Tasha about the missing funds. To a rational observer, the sum of money involved, amounting to several $100s, would seem entirely insignificant compared to the value of a human life or the bond between a mother and daughter. Yet, to Tasha, the confrontation represented a threat to her financial survival and exposed her manipulative behavior, setting in motion a dark and calculated plan. The depth of Tasha S.'s desperation became clear through the digital evidence later recovered by investigators. Driven by a desire to secure Judy S. assets, Tasha sought to gain access to her mother S. home safe, which contained vital documents, including Judy S. original will. This will designated Tasha as the primary beneficiary of Judy S. estate, including her home and savings. However, realizing her daughter's untrustworthy nature, Judy had consulted an attorney to alter her will, placing her assets into a trust dedicated solely to the long-term care of her 7-year-old granddaughter, thereby preventing Tasha from squandering the inheritance. Desperate to circumvent this change, Tasha attempted to break into the safe. Investigators later discovered a highly revealing video on Tasha S.'s mobile phone, which she had secretly positioned inside the master bedroom closet. The camera was directed at the key-coded safe, capturing footage of Judy entering the combination. This single piece of evidence highlighted the calculated, covert nature of Tasha's actions, illustrating that the events of March 3rd were not the result of a sudden emotional outburst, but rather the culmination of a systematic effort to exploit her mother. Further investigation revealed that Tasha had contacted her daughter's biological father, Charles, asking him to co-sign documents that would grant her power of attorney, allowing her to alter Judy's will back to its original form. Charles, recognizing the highly suspicious nature of the request, flatly refused to participate. Undeterred, Tasha drafted a fraudulent document in her bedroom, mimicking the terms of the original will, which would ensure she inherited the property. The financial motive was thus established as a primary driver of the crime. Tasha was willing to commit murder to prevent Judy from exposing her thefts and to secure the real estate and financial assets that she felt entitled to receive. The escalation of this hostility was not sudden. Indeed, evidence emerged suggesting that a previous attempt had been made on Judy's life. Weeks prior to the shooting, Judy had shared a terrifying account with her neighbors, specifically her close friend Ryan Rhodes. She described an incident in her garage where Todd had offered to help her measure the space for drywall. While they were working, a large, heavy plastic storage bin filled vacant IT hat books suddenly fell from the overhead rafters, striking Judy on the head and pinning her to the concrete floor. Judy, who stood only 5 feet tall and weighed approximately 100 pounds, sustained severe bruising and a significant head injury that left her bedridden for several days. Tasha and Todd's reaction to the incident was highly suspicious. They refused to take her to the hospital immediately, leaving her to recover in isolation. When Judy finally sought medical attention 5 days later, she reported experiencing excruciating pain. She confided in Ryan Rhodes, stating that she believed the incident was not an accident, but a deliberate attempt to kill her. In a moment of chilling foresight, Judy told Ryan that if he ever came over and found her missing, he should look for her body buried in the backyard. Despite her profound fear, Judy resisted calling the police, entirely because she feared that doing so would prompt Tasha to leave the home and take her beloved granddaughter away forever. To manage the ongoing threat, Judy and her neighbor established a secret code word. If Judy used this word during their daily interactions, Ryan was instructed to contact the police immediately. Judy's intelligence and survival instincts, however, led her to take precautionary measures that would ultimately speak for her from beyond the grave. Following the garage incident, Judy used a digital camera to document the scene, taking detailed photographs of the rafters, the disturbed dust on the truck cab, where someone had clearly climbed to position the bin, and the heavy box of books She then hid the camera inside her personal safe, leaving a physical archive of evidence that directly refuted any claim of a simple household accident. This remarkable act of self-preservation demonstrated that Judy understood the danger she was in and wanted to ensure that if the worst should happen, the truth would be revealed. On the morning of March 3, 2011, the tension within the home reached a fatal breaking point. Realizing that her mother was aware of her extensive financial deceptions and was actively preparing to report the thefts to the authorities, Tasha decided to act. She sent her 7-year-old daughter into a bedroom. Turning the television volume to the maximum setting to drown out the sounds of the impending confrontation, Judy, sensing the danger, attempted to call 911 using a cordless household telephone while holding a manila file folder containing bank records and Tasha's birth certificate, the physical proof of the financial exploitation. As the 911 call connected, the dispatcher heard a sudden, violent disruption, followed by muffled voices pleading for help and demanding that the phone be surrendered, before the line abruptly went dead. The dispatcher, adhering to standard emergency protocols, immediately initiated a callback. When the connection was re-established, Tasha answered the phone, adopting a forced, calm demeanor. She claimed that the emergency call was a mistake, asserting that she had simply triggered the smoke detector while attempting to change its battery. When the dispatcher pressed for details, Tasha claimed that something had exploded on the kitchen stove, but insisted that everything was fine before quickly hanging up. Despite Tasha's attempts to dismiss the incident, the dispatcher's professional training led her to recognize the underlying distress in the caller's voice, combined with the distinct, persistent ringing of a smoke detector in the background. In accordance with law enforcement procedures regarding dropped emergency calls, an officer was dispatched to the residence to conduct a routine welfare check. It took approximately 14 minutes for the first responding officer to arrive at the home. Upon knocking on the front door, he was met by Tasha, who reiterated her story about the smoke detector and attempted to prevent the officer from entering by claiming she needed to secure her dogs to prevent them from biting him. At this critical juncture, the course of the investigation was permanently altered by the civic duty of Judy's neighbor, Ryan Rhodes. Having heard 2 distinct gunshots emanating from the house, followed by the sound of smoke detectors, Ryan had been watching the residence with growing anxiety. The police officer standing on the porch, seemingly accepting Tasha's explanations, Ryan crossed the street to intervene. He informed the officer in no uncertain terms that he had heard gunshots, not a kitchen explosion, and expressed grave concern for the safety of the elderly homeowner and the young child residing inside. Armed with this crucial eyewitness testimony, the officer returned to the door, bypassed Tasha, and entered the home. In the central hallway, he discovered Judy Hebert lying motionless on the floor. The initial assessment of the crime scene immediately cast doubt on Tasha's claim of self-defense. Tasha asserted that her mother had initiated a violent confrontation, wielding a heavy iron hatchet and forcing Tasha to retrieve a .357 revolver from the safe to protect her own life. However, the physical evidence systematically dismantled this narrative. The home showed no signs of a struggle. Furniture was undisturbed, and the environment remained remarkably orderly. Furthermore, investigators observed that the hatchet Tasha claimed her mother had wielded was positioned 12 to 18 inches from Judy's body, while Judy's hand still held the cordless telephone. The most damning piece of physical evidence was the manila file folder found next to the victim. Forensic examination revealed that the folder exhibited distinct blood spatter and a clear bullet entry hole. This indicated that Judy was holding the file folder defensively in front of her chest at the moment she was shot, an action entirely inconsistent with wielding a heavy hatchet in an attack. Additionally, the autopsy performed by the medical examiner revealed a significant scalp laceration on Judy's head, which Tasha claimed had occurred during a desperate struggle over the weapon. However, the forensic pathologist noted a complete absence of hemorrhaging or localized bleeding around the scalp wound. Because head injuries bleed profusely, when a person is alive due to blood pressure, the lack of vital reaction proved conclusively that the blow to the head had been delivered after Judy's heart had stopped beating. Tasha had struck her mother's deceased body with the hatchet in a clumsy attempt to stage a struggle and validate her self-defense narrative. The ballistic evidence further clarified the sequence of events. The .357 revolver registered to Judy had been fired 3 times. One round had struck Judy's hand and passed into her chest cavity, causing fatal injuries. The immense discharge of black powder and smoke from the powerful handgun is what had triggered the Home S smoke detectors, which were captured ringing during the initial 911 call. The digital recording of the initial emergency call also preserved the actual sounds of the homicide, capturing the struggle for the telephone and the fatal shot, entirely refuting Tasha's claim of an accidental or defensive shooting. While Tasha was immediately taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances, investigators turned their attention to her husband, Todd. Suspecting his involvement in the prior garage incident, detectives sought to locate him, only to find that he had fled the area days before the homicide. Phone records indicated that Tasha had been desperately trying to contact him, suggesting that his departure may have been motivated by a desire to distance himself from her increasingly dangerous plans. Following a multi-state search, investigators located Todd in California, where he was working as a volunteer on the historic World War II aircraft carrier, the USS Hornet. He was arrested on January 17, 2012, and extradited to Washington to face charges of attempted murder in connection with the garage incident. In September of 2012, Todd went to trial. He maintained his innocence, claiming he had no knowledge of Tasha's schemes and that the garage incident was a genuine accident. Despite the suspicious circumstances, the prosecution faced a high burden of proof, and the jury ultimately acquitted Todd of all charges, concluding that Tasha was the primary mastermind and actor in the conspiracy. Tasha's own trial began 8 months later, in May of 2013. Throughout the proceedings, she remained quiet and emotionless, offering no testimony in her defense. The prosecution presented a mountain of cohesive physical, digital, and forensic evidence, including the secret video of the safe combination, the victim's own crime scene photographs of the garage, the bullet-pierced file folder, and the forensic pathology reports, proving the staging of the crime scene. After a 5-week trial, the jury deliberated for less than 2 days before returning a verdict of guilty on charges of first-degree murder, vacap to hat, aggravating circumstances, and first-degree attempted murder. Tasha Stewart was sentenced to 45 years in prison, ensuring that she would spend the majority of her remaining life behind bars. The resolution of the case brought a sense of justice to the community, though it was tempered by the profound tragedy of a life lost to senseless greed. The case of Judy Hebert offers vital lessons in both personal safety and community vigilance. It highlights the critical importance of recognizing the signs of elder financial abuse, which is often a precursor to physical violence. Victims of domestic or familial exploitation frequently hesitate to involve law enforcement due to feelings of loyalty, shame, or fear of losing contact with loved ones, such as grandchildren. In this case, Judy S.'s reluctance to report the initial garage attack allowed the threat to persist, ultimately resulting in her death. For families and communities, establishing open lines of communication, conducting regular wellness checks on vulnerable individuals, and acting decisively when financial exploitation is suspected are crucial steps in preventing similar tragedies. Furthermore, the swift resolution of the homicide underscores the indispensable role of community cooperation in police investigations. Had Ryan Rhodes not possessed the civic courage to challenge the suspect's false explanation and report the gunshots directly to the responding officer, the investigation may have been significantly delayed, potentially allowing the perpetrator to alter the crime scene further or escape. The integration of modern forensic techniques, such as the analysis of postmortem injuries, the retrieval of deleted mobile phone data, and the forensic examination of physical materials like the file folder, highlights the sophistication of modern law enforcement in reconstructing the truth. Ultimately, this tragic case stands as a testament to the memory of Judy Hebert, whose own meticulous foresight and love for her family allowed her voice to be heard, ensuring that justice would prevail. The concept of home is universally understood as a sanctuary, a place of safety where the worries of the outside world are meant to fade away. It is a space built on trust, especially when shared with family members who have promised to care for one another through life's triumphs and tribulations. However, when this trust is fractured by greed and manipulation, the sanctuary can transform into a place of deep tragedy. The quiet city of Pasco, Washington, situated in a scenic and traditionally peaceful region, became the setting for one of the most perplexing and heartbreaking investigations in its history on March 3rd, in the year 2011. The events of that day and the subsequent uncovering of a long-standing pattern of betrayal offer profound insights into human psychology, the limits of familial devotion, and the meticulous ways in which modern forensic science can dismantle even the most carefully constructed deceptions. On that quiet morning, emergency dispatchers in Pasco received a call that at first seemed to be nothing more than a routine, accidental dial. The emergency line, known as 911, connected, but the dispatcher was met with silence, followed immediately by the piercing sound of what appeared to be a smoke detector ringing loudly in the background. Following standard safety protocol, the dispatcher initiated a call back to the number. When a woman answered, she claimed that everything was fine and that she was simply trying to change the battery in her smoke alarm. She explained that the device had gone OEP accidentally and that she needed to hang up. Despite her attempts to minimize the situation, her voice carried an undercurrent of distress that raised immediate concern. Standard law enforcement operating procedures dictate that any hung-up emergency call must be followed by an in-person welfare check to ensure that no one is speaking under duress. This decision to dispatch an officer to the residence would prove to be the critical turning point that prevented a highly calculated crime from being swept under the rug. It took approximately 14 minutes for the responding officer to arrive at the single-family home. When he knocked on the front door, he heard dogs barking inside and a 37-year-old woman named Tasha. Stewart opened the door. She repeated the story she had told the dispatcher, explaining that a kitchen mishap or a smoke alarm issue had triggered the call, and that there was absolutely no reason for concern. The officer, executing his duty with professional diligence, requested to enter the home to confirm that everyone was safe and that no crime had occurred. Tasha asked him to wait on the porch for a brief moment so she could secure the dogs to prevent them from biting him, while the officers stood on the porch waiting. A neighbor from across the street, Ryan Rhodes, approached him with a look of intense worry. Ryan pointed toward the house and urgently informed the officer that he had heard the unmistakable sound of 2 gunshots coming from inside the home. He had seen the window shake from the pressure and heard the smoke alarms ringing immediately afterward. Ryan made it clear that Tasha lived there with her mother, an elderly woman, and her 7-year-old daughter. And he insisted that the officer needed to go inside immediately. Armed with this critical new information, the officer realized that this was far more than a simple household accident. He knocked on the door again, pushed past Tasha when she answered, and entered the hallway. There, he discovered 68-year-old Judy Hebert lying on the floor. It was immediately clear that she had suffered a severe injury and had already passed away. The officer quickly secured the area, called for medical personnel, and requested backup to treat the residence as an active crime scene. The immediate safety sweep of the house revealed that Tasha's 7-year-old daughter was safe in another room, completely unharmed. Tasha was placed in the back of a patrol car for questioning, and the child was gently escorted to a facility where she could speak with a trained child interview specialist. What began as a routine call about a smoke detector battery had rapidly evolved into a complex homicide investigation. To understand how such a tragedy could unfold within the walls of a family home, investigators began to look closely at the life of Judy Hebert. Born Judy DeLong on June 13th in the year 1952 in Amarillo, Texas, Judy was a twin. Her twin sister, Jody, chose a highly unconventional and transient lifestyle, whereas Judy sought stability, artistic expression, and a quiet life. Judy was a skilled artist, a talented seamstress, and eventually a master gardener who took immense pride in cultivating beautiful plants and sharing her knowledge with her neighbors. In the year 1972, Jody gave birth to Tasha, but found herself unable to provide the stable upbringing the infant required. Judy, demonstrating her characteristically generous and loving nature, stepped in to raise Tasha as her own. Later, Judy met and married the love of her life, Rolf Hebert, a warm and intelligent metal artist. Together, Rolf and Judy adopted Tasha, providing her with a supportive, stable environment as they moved from California to Post Falls, Idaho, and eventually to northern Idaho. Despite the stable upbringing provided by Judy and Rolf, Tasha proved to be a difficult child to raise, frequently exhibiting behavioral issues, running away, and engaging in manipulative behavior. As she reached adulthood, she seemed to settle down temporarily, training as a certified nursing assistant and giving birth to a daughter in the year 2004. After a relationship with the child's father, Charles, ended, Tasha married a man named Todd. Meanwhile, Judy and Rolf divorced after decades of marriage. Although the separation was difficult for Judy, she and Rolf remained exceptionally close friends, with Judy often describing him as the love of her life. At the age of 55, Judy moved to Pasco, Washington, purchasing a home in the year 2007. She quickly became the heart of her neighborhood, known for her kindness, her beautiful garden, and her willingness to help anyone in need. In January of the year 2011, Tasha, Todd, and their young daughter fell on hard times, facing unemployment and housing instability. True to her generous nature, Judy opened her home to them, wishing above all to ensure that her young granddaughter had a safe and loving environment. Judy delighted in teaching her granddaughter about gardening, and the two formed an incredibly close bond. However, the living arrangement quickly became tense. Tasha and Todd did not maintain steady employment, and financial strain began to put a heavy burden on the household. Judy, attempting to assist them, allowed Tasha to use her debit card to purchase essential items like groceries and medicine. Tasha, however, began using the card repeatedly, without Judy's authorization, leading to a series of intense arguments over the household finances. When detectives began questioning Tasha at the police station, she immediately claimed that she had acted in self-defense. She painted a picture of her mother as a volatile woman whose behavior had deteriorated due to a change in medication. Tasha claimed that on the morning of March 3rd, Judy had initiated a furious argument over the missing money. According to Tasha, the confrontation escalated to physical violence when Judy allegedly brandished a heavy black hatchet, also described as an axe. Tasha claimed that they struggled over the weapon, during which she struck Judy on the head in self-defense. Tasha then asserted that she ran into her mother's bedroom, found the safe open, retrieved a .357 caliber revolver that Judy kept inside, and fired 3 times to protect herself as Judy continued to advance with the weapon. While Tasha's narrative of self-defense was structured to appeal to the legal concepts of protecting one's own life, the physical and forensic evidence began to dismantle her story almost immediately. Investigators examining the home noted that there were no signs of a struggle in the hallway or the bedrooms. The house was exceptionally orderly, with no overturned furniture, broken items, or disrupted decor that would typically accompany a desperate, life or death physical altercation over a hatchet. .357 caliber revolver, which belonged to Judy, had indeed been fired 3 times, but only one of the bullets had struck Judy. The forensic examination of Judy's body revealed that the fatal bullet had passed through her hand and into her chest cavity. Most significantly, detectives discovered a blood-spattered paper file folder sitting next to Judy's body. Upon closer inspection, they found a bullet hole traveling directly through the folder. This file folder became one of the most critical clues in the entire case. The folder contained Judy's bank statements and Tasha's birth certificate. The physical evidence of the bullet hole passing through the folder indicated that Judy was holding the folder directly in front of her chest when she was shot. This physical reality completely contradicted Tasha's claim that her mother was aggressively lunging at her with a heavy hatchet. It is physically impossible to swing a hatchet with force while simultaneously holding a large paper file folder and a cordless telephone. The presence of the file folders suggested a far more tragic scenario. Judy was holding the documents that proved Tasha had been stealing from her account, likely confronting Tasha with the evidence while attempting to call the police on her cordless phone. Furthermore, the forensic pathologist examined the head wound that Tasha claimed to have inflicted during their struggle over the hatchet. While there was indeed a deep laceration on Judy's scalp, the medical examiner noted a highly unusual detail. There was almost no blood associated with this wound. Because the scalp is rich in blood vessels, any wound inflicted while a person is alive will bleed profusely. The lack of bleeding indicated that Judy's heart had already stopped pumping when the head wound was delivered. This evidence revealed that the physical assault with the hatchet occurred after Judy had already succumbed to the gunshot wound. The hatchet had been placed near her body, and the head wound inflicted post-mortem in a deliberate, highly calculated attempt to stage a self-defense scene. The investigators also gained invaluable insights from interviewing Tasha S.'s 7-year-old daughter. The young girl explained that her mother and her grandmother had been arguing for much of the day. She recalled a specific moment when Tasha took her into a bedroom, turned the television volume up to its maximum level, and instructed her to remain there. Shortly after the television was turned up, the child heard a loud popping sound. This testimony was crucial because it demonstrated premeditation and coordination. By deliberately isolating her daughter and turning up the television volume, Tasha was attempting to muffle the sound of the gunshot, showing that she had planned the action rather than reacting in a sudden moment of self-defense. To uncover the deeper motive behind the crime, investigators began looking into Judy S.'s financial assets and her estate planning. They discovered that Judy had recently visited her attorney to make significant changes to her will. Originally, Judy S.'s estate, which included her home and savings, was set to be inherited entirely by Tasha. However, due to Tasha's unstable behavior and financial dishonesty, Judy had modified the will to place the bulk of her assets into a trust for her young granddaughter, ensuring that Tasha could not directly access the funds. Detectives discovered that Tasha had been desperate to reverse these changes. She had contacted her daughter's biological father, Charles, asking him to co-sign documents that would grant her power of attorney over Judy S.'s estate, a request that Charles had wisely refused. The search of the home and Tasha S.'s personal belongings revealed an extraordinary level of planning and deception. In Tasha S.'s room, investigators found a draft of a modified will that would return all assets to her name. Even more shocking was a video discovered on Tasha S.'s cell phone. Tasha had secretly positioned her phone in her mother's bedroom closet, pointing it directly at the key-coded electronic safe. The video captured Judy entering her personal combination, allowing Tasha to surreptitiously gain access to the safe where the original will, financial documents, and the .357 caliber revolver were stored. This digital evidence painted a chilling picture of a daughter who was systematically plotting to bypass her mother's security measures to secure an inheritance she felt entitled to. The investigation took an even more sinister turn when detectives interviewed Judy S.'s neighbors and friends. Ryan Rhodes and other community members revealed that the shooting on March 3rd was likely not the first time Tasha had attempted to end her mother's life. Only a week prior to her death, Judy had appeared outside her home, looking severely bruised and physically shaken. She confided in Ryan that she had survived a terrifying incident in her garage. Judy explained that her son-in-law, Todd, had offered to help her measure the garage rafters for drywall installation. While she was holding one end of the measuring tape, a large, heavy plastic storage bin filled with dense books had suddenly fallen from the hat rafters, striking her directly on the head and pinning her to the concrete floor. Judy was tiny, standing barely 5 feet tall, and the impact left her bedridden and in severe pain. Judy confided in her neighbors that she did not believe the incident was an accident. She noted that neither Tasha nor Todd had offered to take her to the hospital, despite her obvious distress and a pain level she described as 10 out of 10. It was only 5 days later that she finally managed to seek medical attention. During her recovery, she told Ryan Rhodes a chillingly prophetic sentence. If she were to suddenly disappear, they should look for her body buried in the backyard. Realizing the danger she was in, Judy and her neighbors established a secret code word. If Judy called and used the code word, the neighbors were to immediately contact the police. Sadly, on the morning of March 3rd, the events unfolded so quickly that Judy was unable to use her code word before she was targeted. When detectives searched the garage to investigate this previous incident, they found physical evidence that strongly supported Judy S.'s suspicions. Dust patterns on the top of a vehicle parked in the garage showed that someone had recently climbed onto the cab and knelt near the rafters, where the heavy bin of books had been positioned. Most remarkably, investigators searching Judy S.'s safe discovered a digital camera belonging to her. When they turned it on, they found that Judy had taken detailed photographs of the garage rafters, the storage bin, and the placement of the items. Realizing that her life was in danger, Judy had effectively acted as her own investigator, documenting the physical evidence of the garage incident to ensure that there would be a record of the attempt on her life. She was speaking to the investigators from beyond the grave, using her own meticulous nature to point them toward the truth. This evidence of a coordinated effort led to the arrest of Tasha S.'s husband, Todd, who had left the home shortly before the shooting and was located working as a volunteer on an aircraft carrier, the United States ship Hornet, in California. Todd was charged with attempted murder in connection with the garage incident. In September of the year 2012, Todd went to trial but was ultimately acquitted of the charges. Jurors later indicated that while they believed the garage incident was indeed an intentional act, they viewed Tasha as the primary mastermind who directed the schemes, and they felt there was insufficient evidence to convict Todd beyond a reasonable doubt. Tasha Stewart's trial began in May of the year 2013. Throughout the proceedings, Tasha sat quietly, presenting a sharp contrast to the gravity of the crimes of which she was accused. The defense maintained the narrative of self-defense, arguing that Judy had initiated a violent confrontation with the hatchet. However, the prosecution systematically presented the physical evidence that shattered this theory. The bullet hole passing through the file folder, the post-mortem nature of the head wound, the digital video of the safe combination, and the testimony of the 7-year-old daughter all pointed to a cold, calculated, and financially motivated homicide. After a 5-week trial, the jury deliberated for less than 2 days before finding Tasha Stewart guilty of first-degree murder with aggravating circumstances, as well as first-degree attempted murder. She was sentenced to 45 years in prison. The resolution of this tragic case offers profound lessons for Beote Hot communities and law enforcement. For the community, it underscores the vital importance of neighborly vigilance. Ryan Rhodes' quick action in reporting the gunshots and insisting that the officer enter the home was the sole reason the crime was discovered immediately, preventing Tasha from further staging the scene or concealing the truth. The establishment of safety networks, code words, and open communication between neighbors can be life-saving tools in domestic situations where individuals feel trapped or threatened. For law enforcement, the case highlights the necessity of thorough follow-up procedures on emergency, hang-up calls, as well as the importance of looking beyond initial self-defense claims by meticulously analyzing physical and digital evidence. Judy Hebert's legacy lives on through her meticulous documentation of the truth, a final act of intelligence and courage that ensured justice would be served. The human heart is capable of extraordinary selflessness, but it can also harbor deep, dark channels of greed and manipulation. When these two opposing forces collide within the same family, the results are often tragically devastating. The peaceful community of Pasco, Washington, known for its scenic beauty and quiet neighborhoods, became the stage for such a tragedy on a cold March day in the year 2011. To truly understand the nature of the crime that took place on Salmon Drive, one must delve deep into the history of a family marked by contrasting paths of resilience and rebellion. This is a story of a beloved grandmother, a mother who sought only to protect her family, and a daughter whose toxic entitlement led her down a path of ultimate betrayal. It is also a testament to the meticulous work of the Pasco Police Department and the powerful voice of a victim who, anticipating her own demise, managed to leave behind the very clues that would dismantle her killer's elaborate web of lies. The story begins with twin sisters, Judy and Jody, who were born on June 13, 1952, in Amarillo, Texas. Though they shared the same genetic blueprint, their lives could not have been more different. Judy was a gentle, reserved, and artistic soul, possessed of a warm and nurturing disposition. Jody, on the other hand, pursued a highly unstable lifestyle, eventually working in the sex industry and moving from place to place without a fixed anchor. In the year 1972, Jody gave birth to a daughter named Tashia. Realizing that her chaotic lifestyle prevented her from providing a suitable, safe environment for a child, Jody turned to her twin sister for help. Judy, despite not having great financial wealth, did not hesitate. She welcomed the baby girl into her life, determined to provide her with the stability, love, and opportunities she deserved. Shortly thereafter, Judy met the love of her life, Rolf Hebert, a warm, intelligent artist and metalworker who possessed a heart as big as his imposing frame. Rolf fell in love with Judy and happily embraced her role as a mother, officially adopting Tashia as his own daughter. Together, Judy and Rolf built a life centered around creativity and family, moving to various locations, including Post Falls, Idaho, and northern Idaho, where Rolf pursued his metal artistry. They did everything in their power to give Tashia a beautiful childhood, yet even from her teenage years, Tashia began to exhibit signs of a deeply troubled and rebellious nature. There was constant lying, running away, and a persistent disregard for the boundaries and rules of a loving home. Rolf and Judy found themselves in a perpetual state of worry, constantly trying to steer their daughter away from destructive choices and toxic relationships. By the time Tashia reached her 30s, her parents hoped she had finally settled down. She trained and worked as a certified nursing assistant, a profession that theoretically required empathy and care. In the year 2004, Tashia gave birth to a daughter. Although her relationship with the child's father, a man named Charles, did not last, she eventually met and married Todd Stewart. For Judy, the arrival of her granddaughter was a source of profound joy. However, her personal life was also undergoing a major transition. After decades of marriage, Judy and Rolf decided to divorce. Despite the split, the two remained the best of friends, with Judy often referring to Rolf as the love of her life and her closest confidant. At the age of 55, Judy decided to embark on a fresh chapter, purchasing a lovely home on Salmon Drive in Pasco, Washington. In March of the year 2007, Judy quickly became the anchor of her new neighborhood. She was a master gardener, a woman who could transform any patch of soil into a blooming paradise, and she spent her days sharing her knowledge, plants, and kindness with everyone around her. She lived a quiet, peaceful life until January of the year 2011, when Tasha, Todd, and her 7-year-old granddaughter arrived on her doorstep. Tasha and Todd had fallen on severe financial hardships. They were unemployed, unable to afford their housing, and lacked any stable income. Driven by an overwhelming desire to ensure her granddaughter's safety and well-being, Judy opened her home and her heart to them, welcoming them with open arms. Judy was overjoyed to be surrounded by family once again, and she spent countless hours bonding with her young granddaughter, teaching her the secrets of gardening, identifying plants, and exploring the backyard. But beneath this surface of domestic warmth, a dark and insidious plot was already beginning to take shape. Tasha and Todd's presence in the home quickly proved to be highly tumultuous. Rather than expressing gratitude for Judy's immense generosity, Tasha exhibited a toxic sense of entitlement. She believed that her mother's resources belonged to her. Before long, Judy noticed that her finances were draining. Having entrusted Tasha with her debit card on a few occasions to purchase basic groceries and medicine, Judy discovered that her daughter had been systematically stealing from her, using the card for unauthorized personal transactions. When Judy confronted Tasha about the missing money, the atmosphere in the home became increasingly hostile. It was during this period of growing tension, in February of the year 2011, that a highly suspicious incident occurred in Judy's garage. Todd Stewart had suggested that they measure the garage to install drywall, and he asked Judy to assist him. While Judy was holding one end of the tape measure, a massive storage bin packed with heavy books and other items mysteriously fell from the overhead rafters, striking Judy directly on the head and pinning her tiny 5-foot frame to the concrete floor. Tasha and Todd did not immediately seek medical attention for Judy, a delay that deeply alarmed her. She was left bedridden and in excruciating pain for 5 days before finally receiving professional medical evaluation, where she reported her pain as a 10 out of 10. It was during this period of recovery that Judy's eyes were opened to a terrifying possibility. She realized that the falling box was no accident. It was a coordinated attempt on her life by her own daughter and son-in-law. Rather than succumbing to fear, Judy showed remarkable courage and intelligence. She began to quietly investigate her own attempted murder. She took a digital camera into the garage and photographed the rafters, the placement of the storage bins, and the disturbed dust on the roof of the truck, which clearly indicated that someone had recently climbed up to rig the heavy bin to fall. She then hid this camera, along with other crucial documents, inside her secure bedroom safe. Judy also confided her fears in her trusted neighbors and her ex-husband, Rolf.